The One Nation, and the book is worth reading. It talks about the two-state solution as something we probably don't really know or want. Ghada Karmi is well known in Britain, and even in Norway. Some of the people called me and say, "Oh, is Ghada coming?" That's wonderful. Ghada.
Thank you. Right, thank you very much, and greetings to you all. It's very good to see you all here. And one of the, if you like, more positive experiences that we Palestinians have had, given the current situation, has been the support and the solidarity of decent people everywhere. And this hall is no exception, and I thank you. Now, let me start by telling you a little bit about myself. Yes, I am a Palestinian, a British Palestinian, and I am a doctor of medicine, and I am also a writer of books. But what I think might be interesting for you to know is that I am a Palestinian born in Jerusalem, and born at the time before the State of Israel was established in 1948. I, with my family, was expelled, forced out from our homes in Jerusalem in 1948 because of the building and the appearance of the State of Israel. So I, if you like, am a victim of ethnic cleansing. And of course, for me, what is happening in Gaza has a very, very special meaning and involvement. But I'm anxious that you should understand I am not talking to you as a Palestinian, but very much as a human being. And that, I think, is the way everybody has to look at the events unfolding before our eyes. Perhaps I would just want to start with setting the context, if you like. And my apologies to people who already know this, but it is my experience that the context of what has been happening in that part of the world and what we're seeing now, which is a consequence of that context, is not sufficiently examined or known. And the context is, if you'll bear with me, is that in 1948, a new state was established in Palestine, in the heart of the Arab world, in the Middle East. A new state was established. And it was a state that was composed of European settlers. We need to be quite clear about this. So these settlers who had come from Europe with the express idea of creating a state for Jews in the heart of the Arab world. And they did so by engaging the support of Western imperial powers right from the beginning. So at the beginning, it was Britain, which helped Israel be established. And later on, of course, it was the United States and other Western countries. So that is what was created in my homeland in Palestine in 1948. Now, right from the beginning, because I know that the theme of this meeting is the media, the role of the media in war and in conflict. We need to be also clear that right from the beginning, a project like this could only succeed with very heavy propaganda promotion. Not possible. Think about it. You create a state for a foreign people in the heart, in a native land, and you can only do so by, of course, engaging the support of an imperial power to open the territory for you. And you come and bring in more foreigners and plant yourselves in this land already inhabited by other people. And therefore, in order to make room for you, you have to expel the people who are already living there. And then you can settle down and bring in more of people like you, more settlers. Now, a project like this, I want to make clear, could never have got off the ground without propaganda and a very sophisticated and very active PR promotional exercise. That is what's really happened. So just to give you a few examples, I wish I had time to go into this a bit more, but I'm trying to be as brief as possible. Take it from the very first item of this propaganda campaign, which was to justify the creation of a settler colony in Palestine. There had to be, they had to have a good narrative. And the narrative that the Zionists, who were the party, the people who set this thing up, they had to produce a good narrative. And the narrative, of course, was the Old Testament, the Bible. You know that very well. That was brilliant because it engaged the interest and support and sympathy of Christians everywhere and made sense. It made sense. You know, the equation was made that once upon a time, a long time ago, there were people called Jews living in this particular land, and these Jews were dispersed and have gone wandering all over the world. These are all familiar, of course, from previous to Zionism, these ideas. And then these people finally got together, longing for home, and finally now they're coming home. So that's the story. And people bought it. They bought it, they still buy it to this day. Now, from that moment on, the propaganda campaign had to go on and on and on. Now, the Holocaust was instrumental in justifying the existence of what was described as a safe haven for Jews. And over time, the various aspects of this narrative or propaganda have been added depending on the time and on, you know, necessity and what was going on. And the latest version of this, I'm calling a propaganda campaign, is, of course, antisemitism. You know, when the Zionists started to run out of ideas how to continue to justify the existence of a settler colony, which goes on oppressing the native population, those who remained, plus the region around it, in order to continue to justify the existence of a state like this, which practices apartheid, you had to bring in reinforcements to the narrative. And so anti-Semitism is the newest and very, very effective, as you must know. All over Europe, and I can tell you certainly in Britain, people are terrified of being accused of anti-Semitism. So it chills discussion, it shuts down debate. People are either too scared to speak out, or if they speak out, they get punished, and it's going very well. This is the latest, and it's going very well. So the media had no problem in propagating these series of myths about this settler colony. And people bought it. They read about it. It was augmented and supported and perpetuated by the media in all its forms, the written word, film, and eventually social media. And in a way, you could almost see, given this, how on earth do Palestinians stand a chance? Because, you know, and I've known it in my own life, in order to challenge this, you realize this is a story that has been around for a very long time. You know, the Jews returning home, the Jews have a right, the Jews have a refuge, they might otherwise be subject to antisemitism, all this. When you as a Palestinian come along and you say, but look, what about me? You know, I've lost my home because this state was set up. It pales into insignificance, a story like that, against the existent narrative. And so the issue of the role of the media in Gaza has to be understood in this context. It's not new. So in order to exonerate Israel and do what has been done for 75 years by the media, to put a good face on Israel and what it does, and to present it in a positive light, you can see that they had to work overtime after October 7th, because the horror and the brutality of what is happening in Gaza required a redoubling of effort on the part of the Zionists to produce more propaganda, more alternative narratives. Every kind of device has been called into play, and people must really be very aware of this. We have to be very conscious about this because it's being done all the time, and it's very sophisticated. It's a mixture of omission as well as commission. So things you don't hear about are also as important as the things that are put before your eyes. It's quite sophisticated operation, and we have to be guard against all the time falling for it and being aware of the actual truth, which I would say almost for the first time is unfolding before your eyes, on your screens, on your TVs, on your phones. You're seeing what's actually happening as it happens. And the picture is horrifying, of course, and it's horrible. Now, just to refer to what John started off by telling you, which was that I wrote a book it was published in April of last year, and it was called One State. One State, and the subtitle was The Only Democratic Future for Palestine-Israel. Now, I wrote that book, which is about the idea of sharing this land between the two communities. Now, I wrote that book not only out of a belief which I'd had right from the beginning, that you shouldn't partition Palestine on top of all the insults that have been visited on this poor country. Don't partition it into a two-state solution, which is unequal, unjust, and so on. And I'm happy to answer questions about that if you want to. But because of time, I had come to the conclusion a long time ago that the only way forward for this hideous situation is that we should all share it. The Palestinians who have been so badly treated deserve not only to have equal rights and equal citizenship in their land, but they also deserve to be joined by other Palestinians who currently live in refugee camps. You know, there are between 5 and 6 million refugees in camps as we speak. These are refugees from 1948, 1967, not to speak of exiled Palestinians, people like me. All these people deserve to go home. They deserve the right to go home. And so it struck me as being the only sensible, practical, and also humane thing to do is for everybody to come together in this piece of land between the river and the sea, a phrase I know you're familiar with. And that was the thought in my head, and I worked on it and produced this book, which is a short book. It's in English, it's not been translated into Norwegian, but it'll find it easy to read. But anyway, I did write that in the hope that we would try to move towards this goal. But that was in April of last year. That's when I published the book. I didn't dream then that what happened on October the 7th would happen and would actually change so much in this story. And it is a measure of how differently we now look at all these, the story, the actors, the events. Look how different it is. If you pause for a moment and you think about it, nothing is the same anymore after October 7th. Whatever you thought of the operation October 7th is not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is it upended everything we understood about the situation. It invited us, forced us to look at some fundamental facts here and to actually question all the old assumptions and all the old ideas. And we are still in the middle of it. We have not finished. It's not finished. You'll see that things will go on unfolding and evolving. How long have I got, John? Okay, I'll try and do my best. Now, I want to really perhaps leave you with this thought, and I hope it provokes you into thinking further and mulling over what I've said. One of the very important things that have changed affects the solution I had in mind. You understand, I was talking about this coming together and building a future in one state. Now, I can't even think about that or talk about that to Palestinians. Not possible. Not after the savagery, the brutality, the lack of the faintest trace of humanity in not only the Israeli army, but the Israeli people. I don't know how many of you are aware, but there have been opinion polls conducted in Israel since October 7th. And they show over 90% support amongst Jewish Israelis for what the army is doing, over 90%. And 42% of those don't think the Israeli army is acting strongly enough against the people of Gaza. Now think about that. And you can see that in trying to imagine a future in which Palestinians would live with, even consider sharing a space with, a brutal people, a brutal army, a lack of humanity of this kind, I'm sure you can understand that that is something unthinkable. And that is one of the terrible effects of the assault on Gaza that we're living through. And I wish I had more time, but I just wanted to say that what is the alternative then? What are we looking at here? What? And you know, these things, the field is alive with ideas because of what happened on October 7th, because it's upended all the old assumptions, all the old ideas. not only am I asking people like you to, first of all, think about the context of all this, the fact there's been a huge and misleading propaganda operation to try and persuade you that the presence of a settler colony in Palestine is justified or desirable. But secondly, to look at what is now going to happen now that the masks should have fallen and the scales fallen from people's eyes, and they need to look at this for what it is. You have a genocidal operation happening in Gaza, and you have innocent victims who must be spared. One more second of suffering is not acceptable for these people. So where do we go to from here? I want to leave you with that question. Thank you.